All right, everyone. So this is from the meetup game Josh and I had over at the Venetian. So we got another action-packed PLO mix game here. We go card dead for about an hour until I look down at the Ace-King 5-3 deuce, single suited on the button. This hand, Josh has the $80 straddle on. Folds over to Clint, who makes the call. Over to me, and with just under a pot-sized raise. Don't really love the 4 diamonds, but still good enough to put everything in the middle. So that's what I do. Over to Jared, who also makes the call. Josh does the same. Clint has a little bit more than me. He also puts everything in the middle, and Jared and Josh both make the call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes down Jack 10-9 with 2 diamonds. Jared and Josh are on the side. Jared checks. Josh puts his remaining stack in the middle, and Jared quickly calls. So we're going 4 ways to a run out. The turn brings another 9 in the 9 of spades. River does give us some improvement with the king of clubs, but obviously not really what we were looking for. Josh ends up turning over his hand. He has the Ace-King 10-7-5 for kings and tens. Jared ends up turning over the Ace-9-8-4-3 for trip nines. Clint didn't show his hand, but he ended up saying he had queens with diamonds. So wasn't many diamonds left. And Jared's going to take down the massive pot here with trip nines on a one-liner board. About an hour after the previous hand, now about 2 hours into the session, I look down at the Ace-7-6-4, single suited in the small blind. We go to flops of King 7-7 with 2 clubs and Ace-5-3 with 2 hearts. I check over to Jared, who bets 30. There is 1 late position caller. Over to me. I decide to make it 210. I don't really mind if everyone folds, especially because I do have an extra $50 incentive to win the pot here, being that I am in the small blind for the small blind jackpot. Jared looks at my stack and he re-raises enough to put me all in. The other player gets out of the way, and of course I make the call, so we're going heads up to a run out. The turns bring the 2 of spades on the top, Jack of hearts on the bottom. Rivers bring the 6 of spades on the top and 9 of clubs on the bottom. I turn over my hand. Jared ends up turning over his. He has the Jack 8-3-3, so he flopped a set on the bottom and flush draw on the top. We both had outs to scoop the pot, but we're going to chop it up here. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at the Ace-Queen Jack 10-3, double suited under the gun. And just a reminder, if I have 5 cards, as I do here, we're playing Big O. And the other 2 games are both going to have 4, both being PLO. So I make it 20, and there are 3 callers. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes out 8-4 deuce with 2 hearts. So we flopped a nut low, as well as a flush and straight draw. Over to Bruce in early position, who bets the full pot of 80. Folds to me, I make the call, and the other player gets out of the way. So we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a Jack of clubs, so a pretty good card for us. Now gives us top pair as well as another gut shot. When Bruce bets 200, I think it's a pretty easy decision to put everything in the middle, so that's what I do. And Bruce quickly calls, so we're going heads up to a river. The river brings another 8. Bruce ends up turning over his hand. He has the Ace Jack 10-5-3. So we both have the nut low as well as jacks with an ace kicker. So we're going to chop it up here. Shortly after the previous hand, I look down at the Ace-Ace Jack-Jack 6, single suit in the small blind. Under the gun makes it 20. 1 caller, I make the call, and Jared in the big blind also makes the call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes out Jack 4 deuce with 2 spades. I check. Jared c-bets 75. Other players fold over to me. I think a bit and make it 305. Jared then just puts the rest of the money in. I, of course, make the call. We're going heads up to a run out. The turn brings another 4. The river brings another deuce, so it looks to be a pretty good run out for us. I turn over my hand. Jared ends up turning over his. He has the Ace-10-9-5-3, so he flopped the wheel wrap, and fortunately for us, bricked everything. So we're going to get a nice double up here. An hour after the previous hand, now about 4 hours into the session, I look down at Queen Jack 10-9 Rainbow in the big blind in a straddled pot. This hand, we're playing 4-handed. Folds to Andy in the small blind, who completes the straddle for 10. I make it 40. The straddler folds, and Andy makes the call. So we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes Queen 7-7 with 2 diamonds. Andy checks. I bet 45. Andy then pretty much min-clicks me to 100. And another factor to keep in mind with this hand is there is $200 on the small blind jackpot, which of course Andy, being in the small blind, is eligible to win. So normally I would probably fold to this raise, as Andy's a pretty tight player, but given all the circumstances here, I go ahead and make the call, and we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings another queen, this time the queen of hearts, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. Andy doesn't waste too much time before betting 270. And thinking about the situation here, obviously there aren't a ton of hands that beat me at this point. queen 7, pocket 7s, queen king, and ace queen to be exact. So, you know, if he has one of those hands, good for him. But, you know, with the small blind jackpot in play here, I'm really not going to ever fold this. So I put everything in the middle, and I'm going to go ahead and play the audio of what happened next.
Why can't I snap call right here? Damn
Final call, DB and John W.
I'm glad I avoided the snap call. I was like, I have to, you know, you got a big jackpot.
570?
Yeah.
Why not?
I just got a queen.
I need a heart.
You need a heart? All right.
Or an 8.
Good
Heart
luck.
or an 8, dealer. Heart
Good
or an
luck.
8. Come on. Ah.
Queen.
Nice hand. Nice hand.
Hey. All right, everyone. So as you may or may not have heard, Venetian has a brand new streaming studio here in town, Venetian Poker Live, right here on YouTube. And Josh, myself, and some special guests are going to be featured on the PLO Mix inaugural live stream. That's going to be Friday, March 28th from 5 to 10 p.m. It'll be the same 3 games you see here, except we're bumping it up to a 10-10. It'll have a 1 to 5K buy-in. So I'm super excited. It'll be my first live stream and also one of the biggest buy-ins of my life. But also, while I'm excited, I am also a little nervous. But if I could please ask you guys to not only watch yourself, but if you could take a screenshot of this and just send it to as many of your friends and family as possible. To give you guys some insider information, the amount of views we get on this is going to directly dictate how many streams we get moving forward. So if you guys come out and really just show your support for myself, Josh, and the rest of the guests, that's going to go a really long way in helping us get more of these and just really more opportunities for these non-2-card games. So thanks ahead of time. I really appreciate the support. And the next day, that's going to be Saturday, March 29th from 2 to 10 p.m. We're going to have the 5-5 meetup game. So if you're interested in getting on the list for that, please reach out to me and I'll make sure you get on the list. All right, let's get back into the video. Shortly after the previous hand, I looked down at 9-8-7-6 double suited in middle position in a straddled pot. When it folds to me, I make it 40, and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. The flop could not have missed us any more with king deuce deuce with 2 diamonds. When it checks to me, I check. Action checks through actually all the way to the river after the turn brings the queen of clubs. River brings the 8 of clubs, so it does give us a pair, but when my opponent bets 40, I let it go. Shortly after the previous hand, we're now about 4.5 hours into the session. When I look down at the ace king 7-5-3, single suited on the button, 1 limp. I also call. JT in the small blind makes it 25, and I make the call. So we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes pretty good for us in king 7-7 with 2 hearts. JT c bets 30, and I make the call. So still going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a 9 of spades. JT checks, and I decide to check back for deception and to hopefully induce a bluff on the river. So still going heads up to a river. The river brings an 8, which looks to be a pretty good card as it does bring in multiple straights at this point. JT checks once again, and now I want to make my hand look like a bluff. So I bet 110, as he does also have the $20 incentive for the small blind jackpot. So he thinks it over and does toss in the chips for a call. I turn it over, and we're of course good. I go card dead for a while. This hand is 2.5 hours after the previous hand and now about 7 hours into the session. When I look down at the ace king 8-4-3 double suited on the button, early position makes it 20. I make the call, and JT in the small blind also makes the call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes out 10-5 deuce rainbow. So we flop the wheel wrap, 2 backdoor flush draws, as well as a backdoor Broadway draw. JT bets the full pot of 65. The other player makes the call. And if JT wants to try to take down this $70 or $80 in the small blind, definitely want to make him pay for it. So I bet the full pot of 325. JT makes the call, and the other player gets out of the way. So we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings a pretty beautiful 6 of hearts. JT is tanking for a little bit, just mulling over his options, and he decides I'm putting everything in the middle. I, of course, snap call with the nut, and we're going heads up to a river. As beautiful as the turn was, the river is just as ugly in the 4 of spades. JT ends up turning over the ace 9-7-6-3. So I was in pretty good shape to get 3/4 of the pot. Instead, I'm the one getting quartered, and JT is going to take down a pretty nice pot here. An hour after the previous hand, now about 8 hours into the session, I look down at the ace 10-6-5 double suited in middle position. We go to flops of jack 6-6 rainbow and king 4-3 with 2 hearts. Action checks over to Aaron, originally from Brooklyn, now lives in the Vegas area. Pretty cool guy. He bets 30. Over to me, I make it 130. Back over to Aaron, who repots it. He actually just kind of throws in a big stack of chips, which he's been doing a lot. I, of course, don't mind getting all my money in, so I put everything in the middle, and he makes the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. The turns bring a 9 of diamonds on top, 10 of spades on the bottom. Rivers bring a 3 of diamonds on the top and 4 of diamonds on the bottom. So not really the run out we were looking for on either board. And Aaron ends up turning over the king 6 deuce. So he flopped trip 6s on the top and top set on the bottom. And I had a pretty good amount of outs to scoop the pot, but unfortunately couldn't do it. And we're going to chop it up here. Couple orbits after the previous hand, I look down at the ace king 8-3 deuce, double suited in the hijack and a straddle pot. When it folds to me, I make it 30, and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes out king 6-5 with 2 spades. When action checks to me, I bet 55, and both players make the call, so still going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings in the 4 of spades, so it does give us the nut low as well as a straight, but obviously brings in the front door flush. When action checks to me, I bet 155 this time, and both players call once again, so still going 3 ways to a river. The river brings another 4. When action checks to me, I looked at this card as a pretty good candidate to bluff. Now with still the nut low and the straight, now I can put a lot of pressure on somebody to fold their half of the pot with just the flush now that the full house comes in. So I bet the full pot over to the button, who tanks for quite a while, but eventually makes the call. And Aaron in early position thinks a bit, but tosses his card into the muck. So I turn it over, not really sure where I'm at. And the button ends up turning over the ace, queen 3 with the naked ace of spades. So he had the second nut low and just the aces. And we're going to take down a pretty good pot here. What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 1420, out for 2290. So profit of 870. If you haven't seen the previous video, I'll go ahead and link it up here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.